She had the perfect marriage, the perfect career, and yet she chose to leave. What no one expected was the reason. This is a story for those who have already won and still felt empty. Elena Ross was 34 years old, wearing a $4,000 dress, and had absolutely no desire to be there. The Plaza Ballroom sparkled as if someone had spilled champagne on the ceiling. Crystal chandeliers, white-gloved waiters, gray-haired lawyers pretending to tolerate each other. And at the center of it all, her, the woman of the moment, the newest partner at Henderson & Clark. Elena smiled at the third person whose name she couldn't remember. "Congratulations, you deserve it." "Thank you. What exactly do I deserve?" 15 years. The youngest partner in the firm's history. Yes, 15 years. 1,400 weekends. 4 relationships that didn't survive the schedule. And a cat that clearly preferred another family. And the wedding in 3 months. "You're an inspiration." Elena kept smiling, her face already hurt. Across the ballroom, Jeffrey Miller, her fiancé, her future husband, the man who checked emails during dinner, was talking to the senior partners. Probably about golf. Or mergers during golf. Jeffrey was handsome, intelligent, successful. On paper, perfect. In her heart, nothing. Absolutely nothing. Elena? Patricia Henderson's voice cut through the noise. 72 years old, 3 divorces, and a smile that seemed to have been practiced in front of a mirror since 1987. "Darling, you look radiant." "Thank you, Patricia." Jeffrey was telling me about the wedding. Martha's Vineyard. What a sophisticated choice. It was his idea. "And the buffet? He mentioned you're deciding between glazed salmon and herb-crusted lamb." Elena blinked. "He mentioned that?" "In detail. He said the lamb has better cost-per-guest ratio, but the salmon photographs better. My fiancé analyzes our wedding menu like it's an Excel spreadsheet." "How romantic." Patricia laughed. "Oh, darling, romance is for your 20s. After 30, it's a strategic partnership." She winked and walked away. Elena stood there. Strategic partnership. Was that it? 15 years of work, sleepless nights, impossible cases, ungrateful clients, bosses who yelled, colleagues who betrayed. And in the end, salmon that photographs well? Jeffrey appeared beside her with 2 glasses of champagne. "Are you having fun?" "Very much." "Lie. The Harrisons want to have dinner with us next week. He could be useful for the Meridian case." Jeffrey. We're at my promotion party." "I know. That's why it's the perfect moment for networking." He smiled, that smile she had found charming 3 years ago. Now it seemed rehearsed. "Are you okay?" he asked. "Why?" "You're making that face." "What face?" "The I'm calculating how many years in prison I'd get face." Elena almost laughed. "I'm just tired. Rest after the wedding." He kissed her forehead. "I'm going to talk to Peterson. He's wearing that horrible tie again, but his firm brings in $80 million a year." And he left. Elena was left holding both glasses. She drank them both. The plaza bathroom was more beautiful than the apartment where she lived until she was 25. Italian marble, gold faucets, a mirror that looked like something from a movie. Elena looked at herself. Perfect hair, flawless makeup, $4,000 dress, and eyes empty. When did I lose myself? She didn't know. She only knew that somewhere between law school and that marble bathroom, the Elena who dreamed had been replaced by an Elena who performed. An Elena who smiled when she was supposed to smile. Who said the right things. Who dated the right man. Who wanted the right things. But do I want this? The question came out of nowhere. And it hurt as if it had always been there, waiting. Someone knocked on the door. "Elena, are you in there?" It was Jennifer, work colleague, friend in the corporate sense, someone who smiled to your face and whispered behind your back. "Coming." Elena washed hands that didn't need washing, took a deep breath, put the smile back on. 1 more hour, just 1 more hour. She opened the door. Jennifer had that smile of someone who wants something. "Jeffrey is going to make a speech." "Of course he is. How wonderful." "About you two, about the wedding." Jennifer squeezed her arm. "Oh, Elena, you're so lucky." "Lucky," the word echoed as she walked back to the ballroom. "Lucky, lucky, lucky." Everyone said that. So why did it feel like a lie? Jeffrey was on the small makeshift stage, microphone in hand, presidential smile. "Good evening, everyone. I know this party is to celebrate Elena." Applause. "But I want to take this opportunity to say that in 3 months, I'm going to marry the most incredible woman I've ever met." More applause. Elena smiled. Keep smiling, keep smiling. Elena is brilliant, determined, focused. Is he describing me or reading my LinkedIn? And I'm certain that together we're going to build an exceptional life. exceptional, like a performance review. To Alina, everyone raised their glasses. To Alina, she raised hers, empty, just like her. The party ended at 11. Jeffrey dropped her off at her apartment with a polite kiss. Sleep well. Tomorrow we have brunch with my parents. Can't wait. They want to discuss the gift registry. Of course they do. Good night, Jeffrey. Good night, dear. He left. Elena entered the apartment. Silence. She took off her heels. Her feet had been begging for freedom since 7 that evening. She went to the window. Manhattan sparkled below. Millions of people. Millions of lives. And I no longer know which one is mine. Her phone vibrated. Message from her mother. Saw the photos. You look beautiful. I called Aunt Margaret and told her everything. She asked if Jeffrey has a single brother for cousin Linda. Does he? Kisses. Elena didn't respond. Another message. Jennifer. Loved the party. You deserve everything. By the way, did you notice Rebecca didn't show up? I think she's still jealous of you. Typical. Anyway, congratulations again. Elena didn't respond. Another message. Senior partner. Welcome to the club. Monday, 7 a.m., meeting about the Morrison case. Be prepared. Elena put the phone on the table. She went to the hallway mirror. Looked at herself again. Same woman from the plaza bathroom. Same woman from 4 hours ago. Same woman from 15 years ago. No. That one had disappeared a long time ago. Elena Ross was 34 years old. She was the youngest partner in Henderson and Clark history. She had a perfect fiancé, a Manhattan apartment, and a wedding in 3 months. She had everything. Elena opened the refrigerator. Just sparkling water and an expired yogurt. Of course, she murmured. Even my refrigerator has a longer shelf life than I do. And that was exactly why, 3 days later, her life would change forever. 3 days passed, and Elena Ross was still smiling. On Monday, she smiled at the 7 o'clock morning meeting. On Tuesday, she smiled at clients who didn't remember her name. On Wednesday, she smiled so much that her face seemed to have developed permanent muscle memory. Now it was Thursday, and she was sitting in her new partner's office, looking out the window, trying to remember why she had fought 15 years for this. The office was beautiful. She had to admit. Mahogany desk, $2,000 ergonomic chair. View of Central Park, if you craned your neck and ignored the 3 buildings in front. On the door, a gold plaque. Elena Ross, partner. She had dreamed of that plaque since her first day as an intern. Now, she looked at it and felt nothing. Excuse me. The voice came from the door. It was Brittany, the new secretary. 23 years old, freshly graduated, and with a permanent expression of someone who had just been dropped into enemy territory without a map. Yes, Brittany? You have a meeting at 10? I do. It's in the... Brittany looked at her paper. Conference room? Which one? There's more than one. Elena took a deep breath. 3rd floor, room B. B as in Barbara? B as in B. Brittany wrote it down as if it were classified information. And Mr. Jeffrey called. He said lunch was moved to 12:15. Why? He didn't say, but he mentioned something about schedule optimization. Of course he did. Thank you, Brittany. The girl nodded and left. 2 seconds later, her head reappeared in the doorway. Conference room B is... Turn left in the hallway, 3rd door. Left for someone going or someone coming back? Elena closed her eyes for a moment. For someone going. Thank you. Brittany disappeared. Elena looked at the window again. 15 years for this. The restaurant was one of those that charged $40 for a salad and called it a gastronomic experience. Jeffrey was already at the table when she arrived. Laptop open, spreadsheet on screen. You brought your computer to lunch? It's about the wedding. He turned the screen toward her. Look at this. I did a complete analysis of the guest list. Elena sat down. An analysis? By category. Jeffrey pointed to the spreadsheet. Green are the essential ones. Yellow are the strategic ones. Red are the ones we need to invite out of social obligation, but who don't add real value. Jeffrey. You classified our wedding guests by added value? It's efficiency, Elena. The Petersons, for example. He pointed to a green cell. Are worth at least 3 client referrals. Now, your Aunt Martha. Don't finish that sentence. I'm just saying she's taking up a spot that could go to the director of Blackwell & Associates. Elena looked at the $40 salad that had just arrived. Suddenly, she wasn't hungry. Oh, and about the honeymoon, Jeffrey continued, closing the laptop. I did some research. Research. The Maldives have the best value per day, but if we consider flight time and lost productivity, Bermuda makes more sense. Lost productivity. On the honeymoon. Our honeymoon. Exactly, he smiled. I even calculated it. If we go to Bermuda, we can come back a day earlier and I can still make the meeting with the Meridian investors. Elena placed her fork on the table. Slowly, carefully, because if she didn't do it slowly and carefully, she would probably throw the $40 salad at his added value spreadsheet. Jeffrey, yes? Are you happy? He blinked. What do you mean? With us. With the wedding. Are you happy? Jeffrey frowned, as if she had asked something in another language. Of course I am. Why wouldn't I be? Everything is going according to plan. According to plan. And you? He asked. Are you happy? Elena opened her mouth. No words came out. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. The waiter appeared. More water? Please, Jeffrey answered. And the check, when you can. The moment passed. Jeffrey went back to talking about Bermuda. Elena went back to smiling, but something had changed. Something had broken. And this time she knew there was no fixing it. Back at the office, Elena tried to work. She really tried. She opened the Morrison case. Read the first page. Reread it. Didn't absorb a single word. Her phone vibrated. Message from her mother. Dear, the seamstress called. She needs you Saturday for the final adjustments on the dress. I told her you'd be there at 10 a.m. Kisses. Elena didn't respond. Another message. Jennifer, girl, did you see Henderson's email? He wants the case report by Friday. Good luck. Elena didn't respond. Another message. Jeffrey, forgot to mention, my mother wants dinner Sunday to discuss the flowers, reserved for 7 p.m. Elena put the phone in the drawer, closed the drawer, looked at the window. The sun was starting to set. Golden light over the buildings. Beautiful in a way she couldn't appreciate. How many sunsets have I missed in this chair? She didn't know. How many more will I miss? She only knew she didn't want to miss any more. At 6:47, Elena Ross did something she had never done. She closed the laptop before finishing work. She looked at the dark screen for a moment. Then she stood up, went to the door, took the badge from her neck, looked at it. Elena Ross, partner. The gold letters gleamed under the office light. She placed the badge on the desk, slowly, carefully. Grabbed her purse. Brittany passed by in the hallway. You're leaving? But it's still... I'm gonna get some air. Oh, Brittany smiled. Want me to hold your calls? Elena looked at her. Young girl, dreams intact, thinking this world made sense. No need. Okay, see you tomorrow then. Elena didn't respond. She walked to the elevator, pressed the button. The doors opened. She stepped in, went down 42 floors, exited in the lobby, went through the revolving door, and kept walking, without looking back, without knowing where. She only knew one thing. She couldn't stay anymore. 26 hours, 2 flights, a rental car, and 0 planning later. Elena Ross was officially lost. Not lost in the existential sense. She had been that for weeks. Lost in the literal sense. GPS with no signal. One-way road, and an English sky that seemed determined to collapse at any moment. Recalculating route, said the GPS voice for the 10th time. Then recalculate already. No signal available. Elena looked at her phone. 1 bar, half a bar, no bars. Wonderful. She had left Manhattan without a destination. Bought a ticket to London at the airport, the first one available. Slept on the plane with her mouth open and probably drooled on the shoulder of a very polite British gentleman who pretended not to notice. And now? Now she was somewhere in England, driving on the wrong side of the road, praying she wouldn't run over a sheep. Because there were sheep. Many sheep. More sheep than people, apparently. The sign appeared out of nowhere. Willowbrook, 2 miles. Elena had never heard of Willowbrook, but it had 2 things going for it. It was a name she could pronounce, and it was only 2 miles away. 2 miles. That was... how much in kilometers? Forget it, it's close. She turned right. The road got narrower, then even narrower, then turned into a cobblestone path that made the car shake like it was having a panic attack. That makes 2 of us, car. That makes 2 of us. Willowbrook was small. Not small in the American small town sense. Small in the, this is a medieval village and nobody mentioned they still exist sense. Honey-colored stone houses, roofs covered in what looked like moss, flowers in every window, streets so narrow the car barely fit through. And the worst part? Everything closed. Every shop, every cafe, whatever that place with the antique sign on the door was. Closed, closed, closed. Elena checked her watch. 6:40 in the evening, on a Sunday. Of course, Sunday in England. The day when the entire country decides nothing needs to function. She parked the car, if you could call it parking, since she basically abandoned it in the first space she found and got out. Her heels sank into the uneven stone. Crack. Elena looked down. The right heel of her $600 shoe had just broken. $600. Dead. In Willowbrook. She took a deep breath. It's fine. It's fine. Shoes can be replaced. Sanity too. Theoretically. Limping slightly, she looked around for any sign of life. That's when she saw the light. The pub was called the Drowsy Fox. It had a wooden sign with a sleeping fox, stone walls that looked 300 years old, and was the only thing open within probably 50 miles. Elena pushed the door. The inside was exactly what you'd expect from an English pub. Dark wood, lit fireplace, smell of beer and history. Half a dozen people who stopped talking the exact moment she walked in. Everyone looked. Elena waved. Hi? Silence. A man behind the counter, about 60, gray beard, apron stained with something she hoped was sauce, raised an eyebrow. Lost? A little. American? How can you tell? He pointed at her feet. The shoe. Pause, or what's left of it. Elena looked at the broken heel. It was an accident. The stones around here don't like high heels. I noticed. The man smiled, slightly crooked teeth but friendly. I'm Thomas. This is my pub. Elena? Nice to meet you. Elena. He placed a glass on the counter. You look like someone who's running from something. Elena sat on the stool. From everything. Thomas nodded as if that made perfect sense. Gin or whiskey? Whichever works faster. He served whiskey. Elena drank. It burned, but in a good way. So, Thomas said, wiping a glass that was probably already clean. Just passing through, or I need a place to stay. Hotel? Is there a hotel? Thomas laughed. No. Motel? Neither. Airbnb? Air what? Elena closed her eyes. Anywhere with a bed and a roof. Thomas thought for a moment. There's Marcus's cottage. Marcus Stone, has a property nearby. Rents out a cottage sometimes, to tourists. Is he renting now? I don't know, but he's right there. Thomas pointed to the corner of the pub. Elena turned and stopped. Sitting at a table in the corner, with a book in his hand and a mug of something steaming in front of him, was possibly the most handsome man she had ever seen in Willowbrook. Not that the competition was great, but still. Dark hair, slightly messy. A jaw that looked like it had been sculpted by someone with a lot of free time. Eyes she couldn't see properly from that distance, but that were probably irritatingly attractive too. He looked up. Their eyes met. Elena felt her face grow warm. Great. Now you're blushing. Very professional. Marcus Stone closed his book and walked to the counter. Up close it was even worse. Better. Elena needed more whiskey. Thomas, he said, his voice deep and calm. Who's the visitor? Elena, American, needs a place to stay. Marcus looked at her, looked at the broken shoe, looked at the expression of someone who hadn't slept properly in 3 days. London? Elena blinked. What? Did you come from London? Actually, from New York, but I passed through London. How do you know? Marcus almost smiled. The shoe and the panic. Does everyone here analyze shoes? It's a small village. We notice things. Thomas chuckled quietly. Elena decided she definitely needed more whiskey. The cottage was 10 minutes from the pub. Marcus drove. Elena rode in the passenger seat because apparently her rental car wouldn't handle the dirt road, according to Thomas, and she was too tired to argue. The path was dark, fields on both sides, sky full of stars, more stars than she'd ever seen in Manhattan. So, Marcus said, breaking the silence. Running from what? Who said I'm running? You showed up on a Sunday night in a village in the middle of the Cotswolds with a wheeled suitcase and a broken shoe. So what? And you have the face of someone who didn't plan any of this. Elena looked out the window. Maybe I just like surprises. Do you? No, I hate surprises, always have. She sighed. But here I am. Marcus didn't say anything. The silence wasn't uncomfortable. Actually, it was almost pleasant, strange. The cottage was small, charming, and absolutely without central heating. The fireplace works, Marcus said, pointing to the pile of firewood in the corner. Just light it. Elena looked at the fireplace, looked at the firewood, looked at Marcus. Light it how? He blinked. With fire? I know it's with fire, but how do I make the fire? You've never lit a fireplace? I lived in Manhattan. We had central heating. Marcus looked at her for a long moment. Then, to Elena's surprise, he laughed. Not a mocking laugh. A genuine laugh. Warm. Okay, he said. I'll light it for you. This time. This time? Tomorrow you learn. What if I don't want to learn? Then you're going to be very cold. He knelt in front of the fireplace and started working. Elena stood there, holding her suitcase, feeling completely out of her element. In 3 minutes, the fire was lit. In Manhattan, she closed multi-million-dollar contracts. In Willowbrook, she couldn't even light a fireplace. Who are you, Elena Ross? She didn't know anymore. Marcus left with a promise to return the next day to see if she was still alive. Elena locked the door. sat on the sofa in front of the fireplace. Her phone vibrated. Signal. Finally, she looked at the screen. 47 unread messages. Mom. Jeffrey? Jennifer. Office. Jeffrey again. Mom again. Jeffrey 3 more times. Her thumb hovered over the screen. She could read them, could respond, could explain. Or Elena turned off the phone, put it on the table. Tomorrow, she said to no one in particular. The fire crackled. Outside, the wind blew through the trees, and for the first time in a long while, the silence didn't feel empty. It felt possible. Elena Ross slept that night in a village she could barely pronounce. In a bed that wasn't hers, in a country that wasn't hers, running from a life that was, and strangely, she slept well. Elena Ross woke up at 5:12 in the morning. Not because the alarm went off, not because she had something to do, simply because her body didn't know how to function any other way. 15 years of waking up before the sun. 15 years of running to meetings, deadlines, emergencies. 15 years of training her brain to enter panic mode before even opening her eyes. And now she was lying in a strange bed, in a strange village, looking at a ceiling with wooden beams that probably had more history than her entire family tree. No meetings, no emails, absolutely nothing to do. Elena lay there for exactly 3 minutes. Then she got up. Because lying there doing nothing was apparently a form of torture no one had mentioned. She took a shower, dried her hair, put on makeup, then took it off, because what for? Put on the only casual clothes she had brought, jeans and a sweater that cost $400 but was at least comfortable. Looked in the mirror, ready for nothing. It was 5:53 in the morning. Okay, Elena, you can do this. You just need to relax. She sat on the sofa, looked at the unlit fireplace, looked at the window, looked at her own hands, got up, sat down again, got up again. This is ridiculous. She grabbed her phone, still off since last night. Her fingers itched to turn it on, to check emails, to see the 57 messages, probably more by now, that were waiting. She put the phone back on the table. No, you came here to stop, so stop. Took a deep breath, sat on the sofa once more, closed her eyes. Meditate. People meditate. It's supposed to be relaxing. Inhaled, exhaled, inhaled, exhaled. Tried to empty her mind. Her mind refused to be emptied. Has Jeffrey already told everyone? His mother must be freaking out. My mother is definitely freaking out. And the office? The Morrison case. I left the Morrison case half finished. Someone is going to have to. Elena opened her eyes, checked the time. 5:54, 40 seconds. She had meditated for 40 seconds. This is unbearable. At 6:15, Elena decided to make a list. Lists always helped. Lists were organized. Lists made sense. She found a notepad in the kitchen drawer and a pen that was probably older than she was. Sat at the table. Wrote, things to do today. Looked at the paper. The paper looked back. Nothing came. She bit the pen. Wrote, 1, do nothing. Looked at what she had written. Crossed it out. That was doing something. Making a list of doing nothing was technically doing something. Wrote again, 1, relax. Crossed it out. Relaxing was also doing something. It was a verb. Verbs imply action. Wrote, 1, exist, stared at it. Right, just exist. That I can do. She looked at the list with a single word. Felt strangely defeated. I led teams of 20 lawyers. I closed the Whitmore Industries deal. I won the case everyone thought was impossible, and now I can't even make a list. At 8:30, after reorganizing her suitcase 3 times, counting the ceiling beams, 17, and discovering she didn't know how the British stove worked, Elena decided she needed to get out. Go somewhere. Do something. No, wait, not do something, just go. She put on her shoes. The only ones left, flats that didn't match anything but at least had both heels intact. She left the cottage. The morning air was cold and damp and smelled like wet grass and something she couldn't identify. Nature, probably? Was that what nature smelled like? She didn't know. Manhattan smelled like pretzels and ambition. She started walking toward the village. And that's when she noticed someone was watching. The house next to the cottage had a window with lace curtains, and in the lace curtains, partially hidden but not subtle at all, was a woman who looked at least 80 years old with binoculars. Binoculars, real ones, pointed directly at Elena. Elena stopped. The woman didn't move. Elena waved. The curtain closed. Okay, that wasn't strange at all. The Willowbrook Market was the size of Elena's Manhattan apartment closet. Maybe smaller. It had 3 shelves, a freezer making a concerning noise, and a woman behind the counter who seemed to have been born there and never left. Good morning, the woman said with a smile that seemed to contain ulterior motives. You must be the American. Elena blinked. How do you know? Dear, everyone knows. The woman extended her hand. I'm Dorothy Finch. You can call me Mrs. Finch. Everyone does. Elena, Elena. Mrs. Finch repeated the name as if savoring it. Beautiful name, Italian? Actually Greek. Greek, how exotic. She leaned over the counter. And what brings a Greek-American girl to our village? Just needed a break. A break from what? Work. What work? Law. A lawyer. Mrs. Finch's eyes widened. Stressful work. And the husband? I don't have a husband. Fiancé? Elena hesitated. It's complicated. Ah. Mrs. Finch nodded with the wisdom of someone who had heard 1,000 pieces of gossip and was ready for the next. Running from him, then? I'm not running from. Dear, you don't need to explain. Mrs. Finch patted her hand. This village has a long tradition of welcoming people who need to disappear for a while. Marcus, for example. Elena felt her ears grow warm. Marcus Stone? That's the one. Arrived here 4 years ago. He was also running. Never said from what, but we know. Know what? That it was something big. Mrs. Finch leaned closer. A rich man doesn't leave London to live in Willowbrook without a reason. Elena didn't know what to say. Mrs. Finch smiled. So, dear, what will you be taking? Elena left the market with bread, cheese, and more questions than answers. Mrs. Finch knew everything. Her name, where she came from, how long she was staying at the cottage, and probably her shoe size. Small villages, of course. She walked toward the pub, thinking about getting coffee. Coffee? Coffee fixed everything. She pushed open the door of the Drowsy Fox. Thomas was behind the counter, cleaning glasses. The American survived her first night. Barely. He almost smiled. Coffee? Please. Elena sat at the bar. With almond milk if you have it. Thomas stopped cleaning, looked at her. The silence lasted about 5 seconds. Milk from what? Almonds. Almonds. Yes, almond milk, or oat or soy, any of them. Thomas blinked slowly. Milk comes from cows. Yes, but there's also milk. Thomas repeated with the patience of someone explaining something to a child. Comes from cows. Cows. That go moo. That graze in the field. Elena opened her mouth. Closed it. Regular milk is fine. Thomas nodded and went to prepare the coffee. Elena rested her head in her hands. In Manhattan, there were 17 types of alternative milk on every corner. In Willowbrook, there were cows that go moo. The coffee came strong, hot, and without any plant-based alternatives. Elena drank it anyway. Thomas, she said, who's the woman with binoculars who lives next to the cottage? Beatrice. She keeps watching me. She does. Is that normal? For her? Yes. Thomas put away a glass. She thinks you're suspicious. Suspicious of what? She hasn't decided yet. Last week it was the mafia. Yesterday, witness protection program. This morning she asked me if you could be a spy. A spy? Russian. Elena almost spit out her coffee. I'm from Connecticut. That's exactly what a Russian spy would say. Thomas went back to cleaning glasses. Elena couldn't argue against that logic. The rest of the day passed with a slowness Elena had never experienced. She walked through the village, discovered it had a church, a butcher shop, and an antique store that sold things that seemed to have been antique when England was still a colony of Rome. She ate lunch alone at the cottage. Bread and cheese. Simple. Tried to read a book she found on the shelf. Gave up on page 12. Tried to meditate again. This time it lasted 1 minute and 3 seconds. Progress. The phone remained off on the table, silently screaming. She didn't turn it on. At 7 in the evening, she returned to the pub. Marcus was there. Same corner table, same book, as if he hadn't moved. He looked up when she entered. Survived your first day? Barely, she said, sitting at his table without being invited. Did you know your neighbor thinks I'm a Russian spy? Beatrice changes theories every week. Last week I was an art trafficker. You? Apparently my house is too sophisticated for a man living alone. Elena laughed. For the first time all day, she really laughed. Marcus almost smiled. Thomas brought 2 beers without asking. So, Elena said, Mrs. Finch mentioned that you ran away too. Mrs. Finch mentions a lot of things. Is it true? Marcus took a sip of his beer. I prefer to say I strategically relocated. From London? From a life that was no longer mine. Elena felt something tighten in her chest. How long? To get used to it? To stop feeling like you should be doing something. Marcus thought for a moment. The first month is the worst. You wake up and your whole body screams that you're late for something, that you're forgetting something, that you should be producing, achieving, conquering. And then you learn to waste time with dignity. Elena frowned. Is that possible? With practice. He raised his glass. A lot of practice. She raised hers. They toasted. To nothing. Or maybe to everything. Elena returned to the cottage at 10 at night, lit the fireplace, by herself this time after 4 attempts and a near fire on the rug. Sat on the sofa. The silence was deafening, not the bad Manhattan silence, full of horns and sirens and neighbors fighting at 3 in the morning. A silence, empty, or maybe full of things she didn't want to hear. That's when it happened, without warning, without a clear reason. Elena started to cry. Not a dramatic cry, not a soap opera cry. A silent, somewhat confused cry coming from somewhere she didn't know existed. She wasn't sad, she wasn't angry, she was just releasing. 15 years of fake smiles, 15 years of everything is fine, 15 years of perfect performances, coming out through her eyes. It lasted about 10 minutes. Then it passed. Elena wiped her face, took a deep breath, and strangely, she felt lighter. The phone was still on the table. She looked at it. Still off. Her mother was worried. Jeffrey was probably furious. The office had certainly exploded. But you know what? Tomorrow. All of that could wait until tomorrow. Elena Ross didn't know how long she would stay in Willowbrook. A week? A month? A year? She had no idea. But for the first time in 15 years, she wasn't in a hurry to find out. A week had passed. 7 whole days in Willowbrook. And Elena Ross had made a terrible mistake. She turned on her phone. To be fair, it seemed like a good idea at the time. A week without contact. A week of silence. A week pretending the rest of the world didn't exist. But that Tuesday morning, while drinking tea, yes, tea, because apparently she was becoming British, Elena thought, maybe I should just check quickly, see if everything is okay. Famous last words. The phone took about 30 seconds to come back to life. Then it started. Ding, 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 ding. The screen seemed to be having an epileptic seizure. 147 text messages, 23 missed calls, 89 emails, 4 with urgent in the subject line, 7 with extremely urgent, and 1 that simply said, Elena, for the love of God. Elena looked at the phone. The phone looked back. Turn it off. Turn it off now. There's still time. The phone started ringing. Jeffrey. Elena closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and answered. Elena. Jeffrey's voice sounded like someone who hadn't slept in 3 days. Elena. Thank God. Hi, Jeffrey. Hi, Jeffrey. Hi, Jeffrey. He was almost yelling. You disappear for a week, don't answer your phone, don't respond to messages, and all you have to say is, Hi, Jeffrey. I needed some time. Some time? Some time? Paused to breathe. Elena, I called every hospital in Manhattan, everyone. Do you have any idea how many hospitals there are in Manhattan? A lot? 62. I called 62 hospitals. Elena felt a pang of guilt, small but real. Jeffrey, and the police. I almost filed a missing persons report. Your mother convinced me to wait, but I was about to wait. His voice changed. Where are you? Fine. That's not what I asked. Where are you? Elena looked out the cottage window, sheep grazing, gray sky, a woman with binoculars spying from the house next door. Far away. Far away where? Just far away. Silence. Elena? Jeffrey's voice became dangerously calm. Are you having a breakdown? I'm not having a breakdown. Because this seems like a breakdown. Normal people don't disappear out of nowhere. Normal people don't drop everything without warning. Normal people. Jeffrey. What? I'm not normal people. I'm me. And I needed some time. Another silence. Do you need a doctor? A therapist? Pause. A lawyer? Elena almost laughed. I am a lawyer, Jeffrey. Then you know this behavior is completely irrational. Maybe. But it's my irrational behavior. Jeffrey took a deep breath on the other end of the line. Okay, fine, we'll fix this. I'll come get you. Just tell me where you are. No. What do you mean no? I don't want to be picked up. Elena, Jeffrey, I'm going to hang up now. Don't hang up. We'll talk later. Elena, the wedding is in 11 weeks. 11. The guest list is confirmed. The catering is finalized. Your mother already ordered the party favors. You can't just... Elena hung up, put the phone on the table, breathed. The phone started ringing again. She looked at the screen. Mom, of course. Elena Marie Ross. When her mother used her full name, it was a sign of danger. Hi, Mom. Don't give me hi, Mom. Where are you? What's going on? Jeffrey called me desperate. I almost had a heart attack. Mom, everything is fine. Everything is fine. Everything is fine. Her mother had the ability to turn any sentence into an accusation. You disappear without telling anyone, drive your fiancé crazy with worry, abandon the office, and you tell me everything is fine? I needed some time. Time for what? To think. Think. Her mother made a sound of indignation. Elena, you're a lawyer. Lawyers don't stop to think. Lawyers work. Elena rubbed her forehead. Mom, I know you're worried. Worried. I'm horrified. People are asking, Elena. Cousin Linda called me yesterday, wanting to know what to say at work when people ask about you. Tell them I died. It's easier. Icy silence. That's not funny. It wasn't a joke. Elena. Mom, I'm gonna hang up now. No, you will not hang up. You're going to tell me where you are, get on a plane, and come back to resolve this situation like a responsible adult. I am a responsible adult. Responsible adults don't run away. Responsible adults recognize when they need a break. A break? Her mother was on the verge of hysteria. Elena, the wedding is in 11 weeks. What do I tell the priest? What do I tell the hairdresser? The hairdresser, of course, priorities. Mom, I need to go. Elena Marie, I love you. Bye. Hung up. Looked at the phone. The phone sat there, threatening, full of messages and demands and expectations. Elena did the only sensible thing. Turned it off again. Put it in the drawer, closed the drawer, and went to the pub. The Drowsy Fox at 4 p.m. on a Tuesday had exactly 3 customers. An elderly man sleeping in the corner. Beatrice, yes, the one with the binoculars, drinking tea and looking at Elena as if cataloging evidence. And Marcus Stone, who looked up from his book when she walked in. Gin, Elena said to Thomas before even sitting down. Straight. With ice, please. Thomas raised an eyebrow. It's 4 p.m. I know what time it is. He served the gin without further comment. Elena took a sip, then another. Marcus watched for a moment, then closed his book and sat next to her at the bar. Family? Elena looked at him. How do you know? You're drinking gin at 4 p.m. on a Tuesday. He almost smiled. It's either family or the apocalypse, and I didn't see any meteors. Elena laughed. It was a tired laugh, but still a laugh. I made the mistake of turning on my phone. How long? A week turned off. Marcus whistled softly. Brave or stupid? Sometimes it's the same thing. Thomas placed a beer in front of Marcus without him asking. The fiancé? Marcus asked. Called 62 hospitals looking for me. Dedicated, obsessive. That can also be the same thing. Elena took another sip of gin. He wants to come get me. Do you want to be picked up? No. Then don't be. Elena looked at him. Is it that simple? It can be, if you want it to be. Mrs. Finch walked into the pub at that moment, as if she had a radar for drama. Good afternoon, she said cheerfully, sitting 2 stools away from Elena. Thomas, the usual. Then she turned to Elena. Dear, how nice to see you. I heard you're a lawyer. Elena blinked. How? Oh, these things get around. Mrs. Finch waved vaguely. The city girl who asks questions and doesn't answer any, that's what they're saying. Who's saying? Everyone. She leaned in. I also heard you received some interesting calls today. The phone rang a lot at the cottage, didn't it? Elena looked at Marcus. Marcus shrugged. Thin walls, sound travels. She lives 500 yards from me. It's a small village, Mrs. Finch smiled. Anyway, dear, if you need to vent, she patted the counter. My door is always open. To collect gossip, no doubt. Thank you, Mrs. Finch. The old woman took her tea and went to sit near Beatrice. The two immediately started whispering, looking at Elena. What's Beatrice's theory this week? Elena asked Marcus. Romance novelist. Elena choked on her gin. What? She thinks you're researching rural settings for a book. Marcus took a sip of beer. About a farmer and a mysterious woman from the city. That's ridiculous. I thought it was creative. Are you the farmer in this story? Apparently. Elena didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She opted to order another gin. An hour later, the pub was a little more crowded and Elena was a little more drunk. Not very, just enough to be honest. They don't understand, she said, looking at the empty glass. Jeffrey, my mother, the office, nobody understands. Understands what? That I'm not having a breakdown, I'm just… She searched for the word, stopping. Marcus nodded. And why do you need to stop? Because if I didn't stop, Elena swallowed. I was going to disappear. You did disappear. Not like that. She looked at him. I was going to disappear inside. I was already disappearing. 1 more year and there would be nothing left of me. Just the lawyer, just the fiancé, just the daughter, just what everyone expected me to be. Marcus was silent for a moment. Do they know? He asked softly. That you're unhappy? Elena opened her mouth to answer. Nothing came out. She tried again. They know I should be happy. The sentence hung in the air, heavy, true. Marcus didn't say anything. Sometimes silence was the best answer. Elena returned to the cottage at 9 p.m, alone. The phone was still in the drawer, often poisonous. She didn't open the drawer, sat on the sofa, looked at the unlit fireplace, didn't have the energy to light it. The problem wasn't Jeffrey wanting to pick her up. It wasn't her mother pressuring her. It wasn't the wedding in 11 weeks. The problem was bigger, deeper. The problem was that everyone wanted Alina back. But which Alina? The perfect lawyer? The devoted fiancée? The obedient daughter? She had been all these things for so long that she no longer knew which one was real, or if any of them were. That night, Alina Ross fell asleep on the sofa, without a fire, without answers, without knowing who she was. The problem wasn't that they wanted her back. It was that she no longer knew who her was. The next morning, Marcus Stone appeared at the cottage door at 8 in the morning, with rubber boots, 2 pairs, one for him, one for her. Alina looked at the boots, looked at Marcus, looked at the boots again. What is this? They're boots? I know they're boots. What for? Marcus almost smiled. You said you wanted to learn to live slowly. Consider this a hands-on lesson. Hands-on lesson in what? In not doing anything productive. Alina crossed her arms. And why do I need boots to not do anything productive? Because we're going to feed the sheep. Alina blinked. The sheep? Yes, the animals. Those very ones. I'm going to feed sheep. You look scared. I am a lawyer, Marcus. I sue people. I don't feed sheep. Marcus held out the boots. First time for everything. Marcus's property was about 15 minutes from the cottage, and it was beautiful. Irritatingly beautiful. A honeystone house with rose bushes at the entrance. Green fields as far as the eye could see. A barn that looked like a movie set. And in the middle of it all, maybe about 30 sheep grazing without a care in the world. Alina looked around. This is yours? It was my father's. Now it's mine. And you take care of everything by yourself? I have help. Jimmy comes 3 times a week, but today he's off. So you called me to replace Jimmy. I called you for company. Marcus opened the gate to the enclosure. Replacing Jimmy is a bonus. Alina looked at the sheep. The sheep looked back. One of them went, bah, in a way that seemed like judgment. Are they evaluating me? Probably. And what's the verdict? They're still deliberating. Feeding sheep seemed simple. First, there was the matter of the feed bucket, which was heavy, much heavier than Alina had anticipated. Why does this weigh so much? It's feed. It's lead in disguise. Second, there was the matter of the sheep themselves, which were cute from a distance, and absolutely terrifying up close. They're coming toward me. They want food. They want to run me over. You're exaggerating. A particularly enthusiastic sheep pushed Alina with its head. Alina stumbled. The bucket tipped over. Feed everywhere. The sheep advanced like it was Black Friday at the mall. Alina backed up so fast she tripped over her own boots and fell on her bottom, in the mud, on her rear end, with the $400 sweater. Marcus appeared beside her, looking down, with an expression he was clearly trying to control. Don't laugh, Alina said. I'm not laughing. You want to laugh. I would never. Your eyes are laughing, Marcus. He extended his hand to help her up. Alina accepted, got up, and realized she was covered in mud from the waist down. My sweater cost $400. Now it has character. Mud character. Marcus finally laughed, a real laugh, open, warm. Alina wanted to be angry. She couldn't. She ended up laughing too. Have you ever seen a sheep before? Marcus asked as they walked back to the house. In pictures. In pictures. Clean ones. Clean sheep with little bows. Sheep with little bows? On the internet, to illustrate articles about country life. Marcus shook his head. The internet lies, clearly. They arrived at the house. Marcus opened the door. You can use the bathroom to clean up. I'll see if I can find some clothes that fit. Do you have women's clothes? No, but I have oversized sweatshirts. That's going to be an interesting look. It's going to be a clean look, which is more than you can say now. Alina looked at herself. Mud on the sweater, mud on the pants, mud in places she preferred not to think about. Valid argument. 20 minutes later, Alina was clean, dry, and wearing a gray Stanford sweatshirt that went down to her knees. You went to Stanford? She asked, coming out of the bathroom. Marcus was in the kitchen, stirring something on the stove. MBA, about 10 years ago. And then you went into finance in London? How do you know? Mrs. Finch? Of course. Alina sat on the kitchen stool. Marcus's house was exactly what you'd expect. Dark wood, fireplaces, books on every surface. Cozy without being messy. Organized without being cold. What are you making? She asked. Lunch. You cook. When there's no other option. I could help. Marcus looked at her. A long look. Do you know how to cook? I know how to heat things. That's not cooking. It's a start. Marcus thought for a moment. You can cut the vegetables. Vegetables I can handle. She couldn't. The first tomato escaped the knife and rolled to the floor. The second ended up more smashed than sliced. The third, by some miracle, came out in reasonably decent slices. Improving, Marcus commented. This is humiliating. This is learning. I closed multi-million-dollar contracts. Millions, and I can't cut a tomato. Different skills. Skills I should have. Marcus took the pot off the heat. Why? What do you mean, why? Why should you know how to cut a tomato? Elena stopped. Because everyone knows. You didn't. That's why it's humiliating. Or, Marcus turned to her, it's just something you haven't learned yet. It's not humiliating. It's new. Elena was silent. New. When was the last time she had done something new? Something that wasn't work, networking, obligation? She couldn't remember. Lunch was simple. Pasta with tomato sauce. Elena's mutilated tomatoes included. Fresh bread that Marcus had bought in the village. Red wine that probably cost more than the cottage rent. They ate on the back porch, looking out at the fields. The sun had appeared. Rare for England, apparently. Can I ask you something? Elena said. You can. Why did you leave everything? Marcus took a sip of wine. It took him a while to answer. My father, he said finally. He had a heart attack. Elena felt her stomach tighten. Marcus? 4 years ago, he was at the office. Marcus looked at the fields. He was like me, a workaholic, lived for work, woke up at 5, went to sleep at midnight. Weekends were for getting ahead. Elena recognized the description. It was her. He was 62, Marcus continued. He planned to retire at 70. Just a few more years, he always said. Then I'll enjoy life. And he never made it to 70. Silence. The wind blew gently. I was at the office when I got the call, Marcus said, his voice low. I was closing a deal, a £30 million agreement. My father had a heart attack while I was reading contract clauses. Elena didn't know what to say, so she said nothing. Sometimes, silence was the only adequate response. I went to the hospital, Marcus continued, but he was already gone. And you know what I thought? What? I thought that's going to be me. In 20 years, 30 years, that's going to be me. At the office, reading clauses, while life passes by outside. He looked at Elena. So I stopped. Just like that? You simply stopped? It wasn't simple. It was terrifying, but I stopped. Elena swallowed. And do you regret it? Marcus thought for a moment. I regret not stopping sooner. Not bringing my father here while he could still see this. He pointed to the fields. But stopping? No, not for a second. Elena looked at the landscape, green to the horizon, peace in every direction. And for the first time she understood. Not with her head, with her heart. That could be me. That would be me, if I hadn't run away. The afternoon passed slowly, the way afternoons should pass. They talked about everything and nothing, about London and Manhattan, about law and finance, about complicated families and impossible expectations. And at some point, without Elena realizing it, the sun began to set. It's getting late, she said, not wanting to leave. It is. I should go back to the cottage. You should. Neither of them moved. Marcus turned to her. His eyes were brown. She hadn't noticed before. Brown with golden flecks when the light hit them just right. Elena. Yes? He leaned in. She leaned in. The air between them became electric. 3 centimeters, 2 centimeters. 1. Delivery. The voice came out of nowhere. They separated so fast that Elena almost fell off her chair. A boy of about 19 was standing at the entrance to the porch, holding a cardboard box, completely oblivious to the moment he had just destroyed. Hi, Mr. Stone. The boy waved. That package you were waiting for arrived. Marcus took a deep breath. Thanks, Jamie. Want me to leave it here? You can leave it. Jamie put the box on the ground, looked at Elena, looked at Marcus, looked at Elena again. Did I interrupt something? No, Marcus said quickly. Nothing, Elena said at the same time. Jamie shrugged. Okay. Bye then. Oh, and Mrs. Finch wanted to ask if the American girl is staying for dinner. She saw you two from the road and… Bye, Jamie. Bye. The boy left. The silence that remained was awkward. Elena stood up. I should go. Elena, thank you for lunch, and for the sheep lesson and for the sweatshirt. She was talking too fast. Marcus also stood up. I'll take you. No need. It's getting dark. I know the way. Elena, she stopped, looked at him. This wasn't the plan. None of this was the plan. She wasn't supposed to feel this way. He wasn't supposed to look at her like that. None of this was supposed to be happening. Tomorrow? Marcus asked. Tomorrow? Do you want to come again? Elena knew she should say no. Knew she was complicating everything. Knew this would only make things harder. Okay, she said. Tomorrow. Elena walked back to the cottage at twilight. The air was cold. The stars were beginning to appear. And in her chest, something had changed. She had come to Willowbrook, running from everything. from the fiancé, from work, from expectations. She hadn't expected to find someone, especially not someone who understood, someone who had run away too, someone who looked at her as if he saw more than the lawyer, more than the fiancé, more than all the versions she had constructed. Someone who saw her. Just her. That night, Elena slept in the Stanford sweatshirt for no specific reason. Just because it was comfortable. That was it. Just comfort. Liar, a voice whispered in her head. She ignored it. But she fell asleep, smiling. The following days passed in a way Elena hadn't expected. Too fast, too light, too dangerous. 2 weeks in Willowbrook. 2 weeks waking up without an alarm. 2 weeks having tea with Thomas, dodging Mrs. Finch's questions and pretending not to see Beatrice spying through the window. And 2 weeks with Marcus. Every day. Sometimes at the pub, sometimes at the property, sometimes just walking through the fields without direction. Talking about everything, laughing at nothing, and every time Elena returned to the cottage at night, she slept in that Stanford sweatshirt. For comfort. Just for comfort. Liar. Today is market day, Marcus announced at the cottage door on a Saturday morning. Elena looked at him. Market? The village market. It happens every Saturday. And you're inviting me. Why? Because you need to experience the local culture. The local culture of Willowbrook? Exactly. Which consists of cheese, rubber boots, and gossip. Tempting. Marcus almost smiled. Wear something comfortable. The market is in the field. Elena looked at her own wardrobe. Suits, office dresses, high heels with one broken heel. I don't have anything comfortable. Stanford sweatshirt? She felt her face grow warm. I'm not going out in a sweatshirt. Why not? Because it's not appropriate. For a village market where half the people will be in rubber boots? Elena had no argument. 20 minutes later, she was walking to the market wearing jeans, borrowed boots, and the Stanford sweatshirt. Next to Marcus, who looked irritatingly pleased with himself. The Willowbrook market was exactly what you'd expect from an English village market. And absolutely nothing Elena expected. There were wooden stalls selling things she couldn't identify. There were ladies selling cakes that looked like they'd been made by someone's grandmother. There was a man selling cheeses with unpronounceable names. And there was approximately 90% of Willowbrook's population looking at Elena and Marcus as if they were the main attraction. Why is everyone looking? Elena whispered. Because you're the mysterious American. And you? I'm the local bachelor who's finally accompanied. Is this an event? In Willowbrook? It's practically a national holiday. The first stall sold vegetables. Elena looked at the products. What is this? Parsnip. And you eat this? Marcus blinked. You've never eaten parsnip? I didn't even know this existed. It's like a carrot. It doesn't look like a carrot. It does if you use your imagination. Elena looked at the pale, bizarre vegetable. My imagination isn't that good. Marcus bought 3. You're going to learn to like it. Is that a threat? It's a promise. At the second stall, Elena found Mrs. Finch. Of course. Elena, dear. Mrs. Finch opened her arms as if they were old friends. How nice to see you. And with Marcus. Good morning, Mrs. Finch. You two are always together lately. Her gaze was pure venom disguised as friendliness. Marcus has never walked around so much. Interesting. We're just friends. Of course, dear. Of course. Mrs. Finch winked. Friends who spend every afternoon together and look at each other that way. What way? That way. Elena didn't know what way that way was, but from Mrs. Finch's smile, it was a compromising way. The third stall sold wool and knitting needles, and a nice lady who insisted Elena needed to learn to knit. Every woman should know how to knit, the lady said, pushing a kit into Elena's hands. It's relaxing. I don't know if. It's easy. Look, I'll show you. 10 minutes later, Elena was sitting on a bench, holding needles like they were weapons, trying to understand how the heck this worked. Marcus was beside her, eating a meat pie, watching with poorly disguised amusement. Stop looking. I'm not looking. You're looking and laughing. I'm not laughing. Your eyes are laughing again, Marcus. She tried to make a stitch. The yarn tangled. Tried again. The needle slipped. Tried once more. Somehow the yarn knotted in a way that seemed impossible to undo. Marcus finally laughed. Do you want help? No. Elena pulled the yarn hard. I will conquer this scarf. That was supposed to be a scarf. It's going to be a scarf, the most beautiful one Willowbrook has ever seen. It looks more like a fishing net. It's a work in progress. Marcus took a sip of his coffee. Have you always been this competitive? This what? Like everything is a battle to be won. Elena stopped, looked at the tangle of yarn in her hands. Maybe. Even knitting? Especially knitting. This yarn is not going to defeat me. Marcus shook his head. You're impossible. Thank you, that wasn't a compliment. I know, but I'll take it anyway. On the way back from the market, they passed a group of elderly ladies sitting on a bench. The ladies stopped talking when they saw Elena and Marcus. One of them, white hair, at least 80 years old, turned to the other and said, loud enough to be heard, £2 they kiss before the end of the month. The other replied, 5 that they've already kissed. Elena pretended not to hear. Marcus did too. But the silence between them became charged with something neither of them mentioned. That afternoon, Elena returned to the cottage, alone, sat on the sofa, looked at her phone. Jeffrey. She was still engaged. Technically, the ring wasn't on her finger. She had left it in Manhattan, but the commitment still existed. The contract was still standing. The wedding was still scheduled. In 9 weeks. She took a deep breath and called. Jeffrey answered on the third ring. Elena? Hi, Jeffrey. Strange silence. You're calling. I am. Voluntarily. Yes. More silence. How are you? He asked. Fine. And you? Working. Of course he was. The Morrison case? Delivered last week. Pause. Jennifer took over your part. Oh, good. Another silence. It was strange. They had dated for 3 years, been engaged for 1, and now they had nothing to say to each other. You seem different, Jeffrey said suddenly. Different how? Less tense, less rushing. I'm in a village in rural England. There's nowhere to rush to. Are you enjoying it? Elena thought. About the market, about the knitting, about Marcus explaining what parsnip was. I am. The silence that followed was heavy. When are you coming back? Jeffrey asked. I don't know. The wedding is in 9 weeks, Elena. I know. People are asking. I know. What do I tell them? Elena closed her eyes. Jeffrey, we need to talk when I get back. Talk about what? About us. The silence was deafening. Is there someone else? His voice turned cold. It's not about that, but is there? Jeffrey, just answer, Elena. She thought about Marcus, about the almost kiss. About the Stanford sweatshirt, about the looks that lasted too long. It's not about another person, she said. It's about me not knowing if I'm the right person, for you, for this wedding, for this life. Silence. Are you breaking up with me over the phone? No, I'm asking for time to think. You've already had 2 weeks, and I need more. Jeffrey took a deep breath on the other end of the line. Okay, he said finally, but Elena, I'll wait, because I love you, but I won't wait forever. I know. Good night. Good night, Jeffrey. She hung up, stared at the phone. She didn't feel like crying, didn't feel like calling back, didn't feel anything. And that was the scariest part of all. That night, Elena stayed awake late, looking at the ceiling, thinking. She had spent more time talking with Marcus in the last few days than with Jeffrey in months, had laughed more, had felt more like herself. And that was wrong. It was unfair. It was complicated. I'm going to hurt someone. Whatever choice I make, someone is going to get hurt. But maybe, and this was the hardest thought of all, the marriage was already broken before she ran away. Maybe she just hadn't had the courage to see it. The knitted scarf was on the table. If you could call it a scarf, it looked more like a declaration of war against yarn. Elena looked at it. I'm going to conquer you, she thought, even if it's the last thing I do. Then, she laughed at herself, because it was ridiculous. Because she was in rural England, obsessed with a scarf, running from a fiancé, and thinking about a man she shouldn't be thinking about. The engagement contract still existed, valid, signed, waiting. But hearts don't read contracts. And hers was starting to write a completely different story. Jeffrey Miller had never been to Willowbrook. That was obvious the moment he got out of the car. Hugo Boss suit, Italian leather shoes. Hair, perfectly styled. Expression of someone who had just landed on Mars and wasn't liking what he saw. 3 days had passed since the phone call. 3 days in which Elena thought she had time. She was wrong. Elena was at the pub when she heard the commotion. Actually, commotion was generous. In Willowbrook, commotion meant 2 people talking at the same time and someone looking out the window. But Thomas stopped cleaning glasses. Mrs. Finch stopped talking, which was practically a miracle. And Beatrice, who was in the corner with her eternal tea, practically pressed her face against the window glass. What's happening? Elena asked. Thomas pointed outside. Looks like you have a visitor. Elena looked and felt her stomach drop. Jeffrey was standing in the middle of the cobblestone street, looking around as if the village were a personal offense. His suit gleamed under the weak sun. The Italian shoes already had a mud stain that would probably cost $200 to clean. No, Alina whispered. No, no, no. You know him? Thomas asked. It's my fiancé. Ah, Thomas went back to cleaning glasses. Another one from London. We're becoming a refuge. Alina left the pub. Jeffrey saw her immediately. His expression went from relief to anger to confusion in approximately 3 seconds. Alina, Jeffrey, what are you doing here? What am I doing here? He walked toward her. You disappear for weeks, don't tell me where you are, and you're asking what I'm doing here. How did you find me? Your credit card. You rented a car in London. Of course, the credit card. Jeffrey, I told you I needed time, and I gave you time. 3 days. 3 days isn't time. For me, it's an eternity. Mrs. Finch appeared in the doorway of the pub. Tea for the nervous young man? She offered with a sweet smile. You look like you need it, dear. Jeffrey looked at her as if he had just seen a hallucination. What? Tea, hot drink, calms the nerves. I don't want tea. Everyone wants tea, they just don't know it yet. Elena rubbed her forehead. Mrs. Finch, thank you, but I'll prepare a pot. For when you're done shouting. She winked. Shout away, dear. The whole village is already watching anyway. She disappeared inside the pub. Alina looked around. Mrs. Finch wasn't exaggerating. There were at least 10 people at their windows. Beatrice had come out of her house with binoculars hanging around her neck. Even old Thomas was at the pub door, pretending not to pay attention while paying full attention. This is a circus, Jeffrey said. This is Willowbrook. People here care about each other. This is institutionalized gossip. That too. Jeffrey took a deep breath, clearly trying to control himself. Elena, let's talk, in private. Okay. She led him to the cottage. It was the only place with a minimum of privacy. Or at least, that's what she thought until she saw Beatrice following at a discreet distance of 20 meters. The cottage seemed smaller with Jeffrey inside. Or maybe he seemed too big for the space. He looked around with a poorly disguised expression of horror. You're living here? Yes. This isn't even a hotel. It's a cottage. It's a glorified cabin. He pointed at the fireplace. This is heating? A fireplace? It works well. Elena, this is medieval. It's cozy. It's primitive. Elena crossed her arms. Jeffrey, you didn't come all this way to criticize the architecture. He stopped, looked at her, and then his eyes dropped to what she was wearing, the Stanford sweatshirt. That clearly wasn't hers. Whose is that? Elena felt her face grow warm. It's borrowed. From who? From a friend. Friend. Yes, Jeffrey laughed. It wasn't a happy laugh. A friend? You're in a village at the end of the world, wearing some friend's clothes, and you want me to believe this is about you needing time? Jeffrey. It's him, isn't it? The silence was deafening. It's not about him, Elena finally said. It's about me. Then why are you wearing his clothes? Because my clothes aren't appropriate for a village. Because I came without planning. Because you were running away. Yes, Elena exploded. Yes, I was running away. I am running away. From everything. From work, from expectations, from the wedding, from... She stopped, but it was too late. From me, Jeffrey completed. His voice went cold. You were running away from me. Elena didn't deny it. She couldn't. Her phone rang. Of course it did. Mom. Don't answer, Jeffrey said. She'll keep calling until I answer. Then let it ring, Elena answered. Mom, this isn't a good time. Elena Marie Ross. Her mother's voice was at maximum hysteria level. Jeffrey called me from the airport saying he was going after you. What's going on? Where are you? What did you do? Mom, I'm in the middle of a conversation. With who? With Jeffrey. He's there? Pause. Jeffrey, honey, can you hear me? Bring her back. For heaven's sake, bring that girl back. Jeffrey looked at the phone. Your mother is screaming. She always screams. Elena, her mother continued. The wedding is in 9 weeks. Do you have any idea what people are saying? Cousin Linda thinks you joined a cult. I didn't join a cult. Then what are you doing in a village in England? Mom, I need to hang up. Don't hang up. I'll call you later. Elena Marie. She hung up. The silence that followed was heavy enough to crush. Jeffrey was standing near the window, his back to her. I called 62 hospitals, he said quietly. When you disappeared, I thought something had happened. I thought you were hurt or lost or... He didn't finish. Jeffrey, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to worry you. But you did want to run away from me. Elena took a deep breath. I didn't run away from you. I ran away from a life that wasn't mine anymore. He turned around. And I'm part of that life. It wasn't a question. You're part of what I thought I was supposed to want. Elena said, the perfect fiancé. The perfect wedding. The perfect career, everything right, everything planned. And that's bad? It's empty. Jeffrey blinked. Empty? I was at the top, Jeffrey. Partner at the firm. Case 1. Wedding planned. And I looked at myself in the mirror and felt nothing. Her voice trembled. I should have been happy. I wanted to be happy, but I was just tired of pretending, of performing, of being who everyone expected me to be. Jeffrey was silent for a long moment. And me? He finally asked. Was I part of the performance? Elena felt tears in her eyes. I thought I loved you. You thought? I thought that was love. The perfect plan with the perfect person. But love shouldn't be a plan, Jeffrey. It shouldn't be a list of pros and cons. It shouldn't be. An Excel spreadsheet? She almost laughed. Yeah, it shouldn't be an Excel spreadsheet. He nodded slowly. The anger had disappeared from his face. What remained was something worse. Sadness. I loved you, he said. Really. I know. The wrong way, apparently. The way you knew how. Jeffrey looked around the cottage. At the fireplace, at the books on the shelf, at the Stanford sweatshirt she was still wearing. Does he make you happy? He asked. The owner of the sweatshirt? Elena thought about Marcus, his laugh, the long conversations, the way he looked at her as if he saw more than the lawyer, more than the fiancé, more than all the masks. He makes me feel like myself, she said, for the first time in a long time. Jeffrey nodded. He walked to the door. The ring, he said without turning around. You can keep it, or throw it away, or sell it. I don't want it back. Jeffrey, goodbye, Elena. He opened the door and left. Elena stood in the middle of the cottage, listening to his footsteps fade away, listening to the car start, listening to the silence that came after. That was it. It was over. 3 years of relationship, a year of engagement, months of planning, ended in 15 minutes in a cottage in Willowbrook. She should be crying. She should be devastated. But what she felt was something else. Something that felt strangely like relief. Someone knocked on the door. Elena went to open it, expecting Mrs. Finch with tea or Beatrice with questions. It was Marcus. He looked at her red eyes, at the sweatshirt she was still wearing. Thomas told me, he said simply. Are you okay? Elena thought about the question. I will be, on my own, she said, and for the first time she believed it. Jeffrey left with the answers he didn't want. Elena stayed with the questions she needed. And somewhere between the end of an engagement and the beginning of something else, she realized sometimes things need to fall apart, so the right ones can be built. The next morning, Elena woke up single, officially. No ring, no fiancé, no wedding in 9 weeks. She lay in bed for a long moment, waiting for the despair to arrive. It didn't. What did arrive was Beatrice. The knock on the door came at 8:14 in the morning. Elena dragged herself to the entrance, still in pajamas, which were actually the Stanford sweatshirt and sweatpants she had bought at Mrs. Finch's store for £3. She opened the door. Beatrice was there, with a tray, with tea, with cookies, and with the expression of someone who had just won the drama lottery. For the broken heart, dear, Beatrice said, walking in uninvited. I saw everything through the window, Elena blinked. You saw everything. Just the shouting part, and the man in a suit leaving angry, and your mother on the phone, and Marcus showing up afterwards. She placed the tray on the table, normal for a weekday. Beatrice, no need to explain. The old lady patted her hand. Men in suits are never the right ones. I had 3. None of them were any good. 3 fiancés? 3 husbands. Beatrice smiled. The 4th was a farmer. That one stayed for 40 years. Elena didn't know what to say. Drink the tea, Beatrice ordered. Tea fixes everything. Well, almost everything. Some things need gin, but it's too early for gin. It's 8 in the morning. Exactly. Wait until at least 11. After Beatrice left, with the promise to return at 5 to check on emotional progress, Elena was alone. With the tea, with the cookies, with the silence. She looked around the cottage, small, cozy, absolutely nothing like the apartment in Manhattan. I've been here for almost 3 weeks. 3 weeks. It seemed like more. It seemed like less. It seemed like a lifetime and a blink of an eye at the same time. She got up, got dressed. Jeans, sweater, the borrowed boots that now felt more hers than the $600 heels, and went out for a walk. The village was strangely busy for a Tuesday morning. Or maybe it was normal, and Elena just hadn't noticed before because she'd been too busy running. She passed by the store. Mrs. Finch appeared in the doorway like a cat sensing movement. Elena, dear? The smile was one of pure delight. How are you? Rough night? I'm fine, Mrs. Finch. Of course you are. Strong women are always fine. Calculated pause. The man in the suit left quite quickly yesterday. Sad taxi. He looked devastated? She said, devastated, as if it were a particularly delicious candy. We broke up, Alina said simply. Ah. Mrs. Finch placed her hand on her chest. What a shame. What a terrible shame. Her eyes sparkled with joy. If you need anything, dear, anything at all, I'm here. Thank you, Mrs. Finch. And tell Marcus his tomatoes arrived. He knows which ones. Elena didn't ask why Mrs. Finch assumed she would be seeing Marcus. She didn't need to ask. Everyone already knew. She continued walking. No direction, no destination, just walking. The fields stretched out around her. Endless greens under a sky that couldn't decide whether it was going to rain or not. In Manhattan, she never walked without a destination. Every step had purpose. Every minute was accounted for. Time was money. Money was success. Success was, what exactly? She couldn't remember anymore. She reached a fence. Behind the fence, sheep. One of them approached. Looked at Elena. Elena looked back. At least you don't judge me, she said to the sheep. Bah! Okay, maybe a little. The sheep continued chewing grass. Elena leaned against the fence. I ended an engagement yesterday, she told the sheep. Destroyed my mother's life plan. Left my career, and now I'm talking to you. The sheep didn't respond. You're a good listener. Bah! Thank you. Talking to the sheep? Elena turned. Marcus was there. Rubber boots, green jacket. That half smile that seemed to have been designed specifically to disarm. They're better than therapists, Elena said. They don't ask difficult questions. They don't give answers either. Sometimes that's better. Marcus leaned against the fence beside her. For a moment, they were silent. Looking at the fields. Listening to the wind. You look like someone who just survived a battle, he finally said. Elena almost laughed. Battle is an understatement. I ended an engagement, destroyed my mother's life plan, will probably be fired for abandonment, and my cousin Linda thinks I joined a cult. Cult? That's what my mother told her. Willowbrook is many things. A cult isn't one of them. Tell that to Linda. Marcus smiled. The silence returned. But it was a comfortable silence, the kind of silence that doesn't need to be filled. How are you? Marcus asked. Really? Elena thought, for a long moment. I don't know, she finally said. I should be devastated, right? 3 years of relationship, a year of engagement, months of planning, all over. But you're not devastated. She searched for the word. Confused, relieved, scared. Scared of what? Elena looked at the fields. Of not knowing who I am. Her voice trembled. I spent 15 years building a life, Marcus. Partner at the firm, impossible case one, perfect wedding, everything right, everything planned, and when I got there, she couldn't finish. Marcus waited, patient. When you got there, he encouraged. Elena took a deep breath. When I got there, I realized it wasn't me who was there. Her eyes filled with water. It was someone else. A version of me that I built to please everyone, my parents, the bosses, Jeffrey, society, everyone except me. A tear escaped. She wiped it with the back of her hand. I don't know when I lost myself, she continued, her voice breaking. I just know that night, at the party, when I looked in the mirror, I didn't recognize myself. There was a stranger there. A stranger in a $4,000 dress with a rehearsed smile and a perfect life. And she looked empty. Marcus didn't say anything. He just listened. Sometimes that was enough. I spent 15 years asking, did I make it? Elena said. Got the position? Got the case? Got the fiancé? Got the promotion. Always achieving, always climbing, always running to the next goal. She looked at Marcus, and for the first time, the question wasn't, did I make it? It was, do I want this? The wind blew. The sheep continued grazing, and something inside Elena let go, something she had been holding for years. Decades, maybe. I didn't want it, she whispered. Any of it. The firm, the wedding, the life everyone expected. I didn't want it. I just thought I should want it. Marcus finally spoke. And now? Elena looked at him, at the fields around them, at the village in the distance, at the sheep that didn't judge. Now I want to find out what I really want. She wiped another tear. For the first time in my life, I want to ask questions that are mine, not my parents', not work's, not anyone's, just mine. Marcus nodded, and you will find out. How do you know? Because you've already started. He looked at her. You ran away, you questioned, you're here, talking to sheep and crying in front of a man you've known for 3 weeks. That takes courage. Or insanity. Sometimes it's the same thing. Elena almost laughed. You say that a lot, because it's very true. They stayed at the fence for a while longer. They didn't need words. They didn't need plans. They didn't need anything beyond the moment. And for the first time in 15 years, Alina didn't feel urgency to go anywhere. The sun finally appeared, timid, as if apologizing for having disappeared for so long. Elena looked at it. I'm scared, she admitted quietly. Of what? Of starting something new when I'm still so broken. Marcus turned to her. You're not broken, you're rebuilding. It's different. Is it? It is. Broken means beyond repair. Rebuilding means you're choosing which pieces stay and which ones go. Elena thought about that. What if I choose wrong? Then you choose again, he shrugged. That's what living people do. They choose. They mess up. They choose again. She looked at him, at the brown eyes with golden flecks, at the man who had run away before her, who had found peace before her, who was there, patient, waiting for her to find hers. Thank you, she said. For what? For not giving me answers. I don't have answers. Just better questions. Elena smiled, small, but real. She walked back to the cottage in the late afternoon, alone, but not feeling alone. The phone vibrated in her pocket. Message from her mother. She didn't open it. Not today. Today was hers. To process, to breathe, to start answering the only question that mattered. Do I want this? The question echoed as she opened the cottage door. There was no answer yet. But for the first time, Alina realized something. She'd spent her entire life answering other people's expectations. Her parents, her bosses, her fiancés, societies, always running to the next yes that wasn't hers. Now, the only question that mattered was from her to herself. And she was finally ready to hear the answer. A week later, Alina Ross did something she never imagined doing. She stayed. She didn't stay because she had no option. She didn't stay because she was running away. She didn't stay because she didn't know where to go. She stayed because she wanted to. And that was the difference. The first sign that something had changed came on a Tuesday morning. Alina was at the pub at 9 o'clock, drinking tea. Not coffee, tea. Thomas placed the cup in front of her. Elena took a sip. Thomas observed. You learned, he said. Learned what? How to drink tea properly, without making a face, without asking for almond milk. He almost smiled. It took 3 weeks, but you learned. Elena looked at the cup. It was true. At some point, without realizing it, she had stopped fighting the tea and started simply appreciating it. Thank you, Thomas. For what? For not giving up on me. Thomas shrugged. It was nothing special. You were a difficult case, but I've seen worse. You have? There was an American here in 2019. He asked for decaf coffee with soy foam and sugar-free vanilla syrup. And what happened? I gave him tea. He survived. Alina laughed. For the first time in a long while, laughing felt natural. The second sign came on Thursday. Alina was at Marcus's property helping with the sheep. Helping was a generous term. Actually, she was sitting on the fence watching Marcus work while trying not to get in the way. You can help if you want, Marcus said, carrying a bucket. I am helping. Sitting on the fence? Moral support, it's important. He laughed. Alina smiled. The afternoon sun was warm, rare for England, and the fields stretched to the horizon like an endless green sea. I decided to stay, Alina said suddenly. Marcus stopped. Stay? A little longer. I don't know how long, but more. He put the bucket on the ground, walked to her, stopped very close, too close to be casual. Why? Because I'm not finished yet. Finished with what? Finding out who I am when I'm not running. Marcus looked at her, that look that made her stomach tie in knots. And are you finding out? Little by little, she swallowed. I found out I like tea, that I can survive without email, that sheep are judgmental, but honestly, I respect that. Marcus smiled. What else? Elena looked at him, at the brown eyes with golden flecks, at the man who had waited, who hadn't pressured, who was there, standing in front of her, with a silent question on his face. I found out I like being near you, she said quietly. The air between them changed. Marcus leaned in, Elena leaned in, and this time there was no Jamie with deliveries. No phone ringing, no. A curious sheep had appeared out of nowhere and pushed Elena from behind. She lost her balance, fell forward, right into Marcus's arms, who caught her. With their faces inches apart, I'm going to sue that sheep, Elena murmured. You're a lawyer. Technically you can. She interrupted our moment. She pushed you closer to me. Maybe she was helping. That's too much optimism. It's perspective. And then he kissed her. For real this time. Without interruptions. Without sheep. Without Jamie. Just the two of them. And the green fields. And a moment Alina would keep forever. Bah! The sheep was still there. Watching. Judging. Elena separated from Marcus and stared at the animal. Don't you have grass to eat? Bah! That was rude. Marcus laughed. She likes you. She interrupted our first kiss. Actually, she caused our first kiss. You fell on me. Details. Important details. Elena looked at the sheep. The sheep looked back. Okay, Elena admitted. Maybe I should say thank you. Bah! But don't push it. That night, Elena returned to the cottage floating. Not literally, but almost. She sat on the couch, looked at her phone, 23 unread messages from her mother. It was time. She took a deep breath and called. Elena? Her mother's voice was pure controlled hysteria. Elena, is that you? It's me, Mom. Thank goodness. I thought you had been kidnapped or joined a cult. Cousin Linda said there's a cult in England that recruits American lawyers and, Mom, makes them live in cabins and knit things and, Mom. Silence. I didn't join a cult, Elena said calmly. Then where are you? In a village, in England. It's called the Cotswolds. Coswald? Cotswolds with a T. Never heard of it. It's in the countryside near London. How near? It's near enough. Silence on the other end. And what do you do there? Her mother asked. Elena thought. I exist. Exist? Yeah, I wake up, drink tea, walk, talk to people. Exist. That's not a life, Elena. That's retirement. You're 34 years old. Mom, I spent 15 years not existing. 15 years running, working, achieving. And you know what I achieved? A brilliant career. A void. Her voice didn't tremble. I achieved a void, Mom. I looked in the mirror and didn't recognize myself. I had everything you wanted me to have and felt nothing. Long silence. Very long. Her mother finally asked. Quieter. Less hysterical. What do you feel now? Elena looked out the window. The sun was setting over the fields. Gold. Orange. Beautiful. Now I feel, she said. That's all. I feel. The conversation lasted another half hour. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary. Her mother didn't understand everything. She probably never would completely. But for the first time, she listened. And when she hung up, she wasn't screaming. She was thinking. It was a start. On Friday, Elena ran into Mrs. Finch at the store. The old lady had a bigger smile than usual, which was concerning. Elena, dear, Mrs. Finch practically sang. I heard the news. What news? You and Marcus, she winked. At the property, yesterday. Elena felt her face burn. How did you? Dear, I know. Mrs. Finch patted her arm. I knew from day one. Day one. When you walked into the pub with that broken shoe and he showed up, I thought, those two are going to end up together. You thought that? I did. Ask Thomas. I told him that very night. Elena doubted Mrs. Finch had said exactly that, but she wasn't going to argue. Anyway, Mrs. Finch continued, I'm very happy for you both. Marcus needed someone, and you. She looked Elena up and down. You're different, dear. Different how? You look like yourself. Elena didn't know what to say, but maybe it was the best compliment she had ever received. That afternoon, Beatrice showed up at the cottage door with cookies. And a new theory. I finally figured it out, she said, walking in uninvited. You're a writer. A writer of romance novels. Beatrice nodded with conviction. You came here to research. The rural setting, the mysterious man, the escape from the big city. It all makes sense now. Elena blinked. Beatrice, I'm not. The book is going to be about a lawyer who runs away to England and finds love. Classic. She placed the cookies on the table. When you publish it, I want an autographed copy. But I'm not. Dedicated to me. For Beatrice, who always knew the truth. Elena gave up arguing. At least I'm not a Russian spy anymore. Beatrice waved her hand. That was last week, dear. Theories evolve. Later, Elena found Marcus at the pub. They sat at the corner table. The table that had become theirs. Beatrice thinks I'm a writer now, Elena told him. Better than a spy. Marginally. He laughed. She laughed. And for a moment, everything seemed simple. And now? Marcus asked. What comes next? Elena thought. I don't know. Does that scare you? She looked at him. At the man who didn't ask for answers, who didn't pressure. Who was there, present, patient. No, she said. For the first time, not knowing doesn't scare me. Marcus smiled. That's good. Is it? It is. It means you're learning. Learning what? To live without a script. Elena took a sip of tea. I heard a lot of people, she said quietly. Jeffrey, my mother, the firm, a lot of people. Marcus waited. You saved yourself, he finally said. They'll understand or they won't. It's not something you can control. I know, she sighed. It's just hard to accept. Most important things are. Elena looked at him. At their table. At the pub that had become home. At the life she was starting to build. Without a plan, without a script, without guarantees. And strangely, it was okay. Elena Ross didn't have all the answers. She didn't know how long she would stay in Willowbrook. She didn't know what she would do with her career. She didn't know what the future held. But for the first time in her life, she was asking the right questions. And that For now was enough. 1 month in Willowbrook, 31 days. 462 cups of tea, approximately. And Elena Ross had a decision to make. The thing about small villages is that you don't stay anonymous for long. In Manhattan, Elena could go years without knowing the neighbor next door. In Willowbrook, after a month, she knew that Mrs. Finch and Mrs. Patterson hadn't spoken since 1987 because of an apple pie recipe that was supposedly stolen. That Thomas had been married 3 times and still wore the wedding ring from his second wife because it was the one that fit best. That Beatrice had worked for the government in the 70s and never specified doing what, which explained the obsession with conspiracy theories. That Jamie, the delivery guy, was secretly in love with the butcher's daughter but was too shy to talk to her. And that everyone, absolutely everyone, knew that Elena and Marcus were together before they even admitted it. Willowbrook didn't have secrets. It just had information that hadn't been shared yet. That Wednesday morning, Elena was in the cottage kitchen, making pie. Yes, pie. She, Elena Ross, former workaholic lawyer who didn't know how to cut a tomato a month ago, was making pie. And not just any pie. The perfect apple pie. It had taken 2 weeks to learn. 7 failed attempts, 1 near explosion of the oven, and an incident with flour that she preferred not to remember. But now she had mastered it. 1 pie. Just 1. But perfect. The problem was that today she had tried to make 2. The first was golden, fragrant, ready to be photographed for a magazine. The second looked like a scientific experiment that had gone very, very wrong. What happened to this one? Marcus asked, looking at the second pie. I don't want to talk about it. It looks like it melted. I said I don't want to talk about it. And then solidified again. Marcus? And formed some kind of crater in the middle. Elena threw a dish towel at him. He laughed. She did too. Later, they sat on the back porch of Marcus's property, with the perfect pie. Only the perfect one. The other had been discreetly eliminated. I need to go back, Elena said suddenly. Marcus stopped chewing. Go back. To New York, to sort things out. The firm, my mother, the apartment. She sighed. I can't keep running forever. Marcus nodded slowly. When? Next week, maybe. I need to buy the ticket. Silence. The wind blew across the fields. And us? Marcus asked. Elena looked at him, at the man who had waited, who hadn't pressured, who was there, afraid for the first time since she'd known him. You're the first thing I chose, she said. The first thing in 15 years that was just mine. Not out of obligation, not out of expectation, not because someone said I should want it, just because I wanted to. Marcus didn't say anything. I'm not giving you up, Elena continued. I'm going back to sort things out, to see if I still want that life or a different version of it. But I will come back, here, to you. Promise? She held his hand. Promise. Marcus smiled, small but full of something that looked a lot like hope. Okay, he said, then I'll be here. Waiting? Waiting. He squeezed her hand. It's what I do best, apparently. Elena laughed and kissed him, tasting like apple pie. Perfect. The news that Elena was leaving spread through the village in approximately 47 minutes. A record, according to Thomas. Mrs. Finch was the first to show up at the cottage. You're not leaving. She seemed genuinely worried. Not for real? Only for a while, Mrs. Finch. I'll be back. But what about Marcus? What about us? Her eyes filled with water. I got used to you, Elena. You're the most interesting thing that's happened in this village since the church roof caught fire in 2015. Elena wasn't sure if that was a compliment. She decided to accept it as one. I'll be back, she repeated. I promise. Mrs. Finch sniffled. You're a good girl. She patted Elena's arm. Even though you're American. Beatrice showed up an hour later, with goodbye cookies and a request. When the book comes out, she said, send me an autographed copy. Beatrice, I'm not. Dedicated to me. For Beatrice who saw the truth when no one else did. Elena sighed. Sure thing. Beatrice smiled, satisfied. I knew you were special from day one. You thought I was a Russian spy on day one. Exactly. Special. Elena couldn't argue with that logic. On Thursday, Elena called her mother. I'm coming back, she said. Next week. Silence on the other end. To stay? Her mother asked. To sort things out, talk to the firm, see the apartment, and talk to you in person. More silence. And after? After, I don't know, but I'll probably go back to England. To the village. Yes, to the man. Elena smiled. That too. Her mother sighed. A long sigh loaded with 15 years of expectations being reorganized. I don't understand, she finally said. I really don't understand. You had everything, Alina. Career, fiancé, future, and you gave it all up for sheep? It's not about sheep, Mom. Then what is it about? It's about me. For the first time in my life, it's just about me. Silence. Very long. If you're happy, her mother said slowly, as if each word cost effort, I'll try to understand. It was the most she could manage, and it was enough. Thank you, Mom. Don't thank me yet. I still think you're crazy. I know. But you're my crazy daughter, so I'll support you, in my own way. Helena felt her eyes sting. I love you, Mom. I love you too. Pause. Even when you do incomprehensible things like running away to England to live with sheep. It's only 30 sheep. That doesn't help, Elena. I know. The day of departure came too quickly. Alina was at the cottage door, bag packed, car waiting, and half the village had shown up to say goodbye. Half of the entire village. Mrs. Finch was crying. Beatrice was taking photos to document. Thomas had brought a bottle of special tea for the trip. Jamie was there too, standing in the corner, probably waiting to interrupt some important moment. And Marcus. Marcus was in front, with that half-smile Elena had learned to love. I'll be back, she said, to him and to everyone. We know, Mrs. Finch sniffled. But it still hurts. You stayed a month, Thomas said. That's more than most tourists. She's not a tourist, Beatrice protested. She's one of us now. Elena felt her chest tighten. One of us. A month ago she was a stranger with a broken shoe. Now she was part of something. It was a lot. It was everything. She hugged Mrs. Finch, who cried more, hugged Beatrice, who whispered, Chapter 3 is going to be about me, waved at Thomas, who waved back with his usual British dignity, and finally stood facing Marcus. This isn't goodbye, she said. I know. It's just until I come back. I know. 2 weeks, maybe 3. I'll count the days. How romantic. I have my moments. Elena laughed, cried a little, laughed again, and kissed him. In front of everyone. Mrs. Finch applauded. Beatrice took more photos. Jamie predictably dropped something and interrupted the moment. But it was okay. It was perfect just like that. Elena got in the car. Looked in the rearview mirror. Willowbrook got smaller with each meter. The stone houses, the pub, the church, the green fields, and the people on the road waving. She wiped away a tear. It wasn't sadness, it was gratitude. For having run away, for having found, for having chosen. Elena Ross was going back to New York, to face the firm, her mother, the empty apartment, the life she had left behind. But she wasn't the same woman who had run away a month ago. That woman was lost. This one knew exactly what she wanted, and more importantly, she knew where to come back to. 3 months later, Elena Ross did something the old Elena would never do. She slowed down. She didn't stop completely. That was still a work in progress. But she slowed down, and the difference was everything. The apartment in Manhattan was smaller now. Not physically. It still had the same square footage as always. But Elena had sold half the furniture, donated the suits, put the $600 heels in a box at the back of the closet. And in the living room window, there was a plant. A single plant. Green, small, theoretically impossible to kill. This is George. Elena said to Marcus, who was visiting for the second time that month. You named the plant? George is the first living thing under my care. She watered the leaves proudly. And he's still alive. That's a miracle. Marcus looked at George. George was, objectively, a very common plant. But Elena looked at him as if he were an achievement. And maybe he was. They went out for a walk in Central Park. Marcus looked around with the expression of someone who had just entered another planet. I had forgotten how everything is so fast, he said, and loud, and full of people, and expensive, and missing the pub, Elena smiled. Marcus laughed. The pub, the sheep, the silence, not having to dodge 50 people to walk 3 meters. Welcome to New York. Thank you, I want to leave. Elena burst out laughing. It was good having him there. Strange, but good. 2 worlds colliding. And somehow working. On Thursday, Elena went to the firm, not to work, to have coffee with Jennifer, the same Jennifer who had taken over the Morrison case. You're different, Jennifer said, looking at Elena as if trying to identify what had changed. I know. Your hair? No. The clothes? Maybe. But that's not it. Jennifer frowned. Then what is it? Elena thought. I'm me. She took a sip of coffee. For the first time in a long time, I'm just me. No performance. No character. No pretending I'm fine when I'm not. Jennifer blinked. That's weird. It's liberating. Sounds weird? Elena laughed. To you, probably yes. Jennifer looked around the cafe, at the lawyers in suits running to meetings, at the people shouting on the phone, at the organized chaos that was Manhattan at noon. Don't you miss it? She asked. Elena thought. The adrenaline, the achievement, the power of closing an impossible case. Sometimes, she admitted, but not enough to come back. And what do you do now? Consulting, at my own pace, on my own terms. Does that pay the bills? It does. Less than before, but I also need less. Jennifer seemed unable to process this information. You're crazy. Probably. But you seem happy? Elena smiled. I am. On Saturday, Alina called her mother. It had become routine, every week a call. Not to report in, just to talk. And how's George? Her mother asked. Still alive? Are you watering him right? You can't water too much or too little. Mom, you've never had a plant in your life. But I researched. After you told me about George, I researched. Elena felt something warm in her chest. It was her mother's way of saying she cared. George is doing great, Mom. Thanks for asking. Silence on the other end. Alina, her mother said softer. Are you really happy? It was the question she always asked. Every week, as if she still didn't believe the answer. I am, Elena said. For the first time in my life, it's not a rehearsed answer. Her mother sighed. I still don't completely understand this life you've chosen, the village, the man, the sheep. It's only 30 sheep, Mom. You know what I mean? I know. But, her mother hesitated. If you're happy, I'm happy. In my own way. Complaining, but happy. Elena laughed. Thank you, Mom. Now go call your Aunt Martha. She's been asking about you for weeks. Mom, call her. She thinks you joined a sheep cult. That doesn't even exist. She thinks it does. Call her. Elena sighed. Okay, I'll call. Good girl. On Sunday morning, Alina caught a flight to London, and then a car to the Cotswolds. The same road as 3 months ago, the same curves, the same green fields, but everything different, because this time she wasn't running away, she was choosing. Willowbrook appeared on the horizon like a painting. Stone houses, old rooftops, flowers in the windows. Elena parked in front of the Drowsy Fox. Before she even got out of the car, Mrs. Finch appeared. She's back. Mrs. Finch shouted to no one in particular. The American is back. In approximately 30 seconds, half the village was there. Thomas, Beatrice, Jamie, even the butcher Elena had seen maybe twice in her life. You took your time, Mrs. Finch said, hugging her. I sent 15 messages this week. I know. Read them all. Thanks for the update on Mrs. Patterson's fight with the mailman. She deserved it. That woman is impossible. Beatrice appeared beside her. And the book? When is it coming out? Beatrice, I'm still not. Chapter about me, don't forget. I'm not going to. And the title, I have suggestions. Thomas appeared with a cup. Tea? Elena accepted. Thank you, Thomas. You learned well. I had a good teacher. He almost smiled. It was the most approval Thomas offered, and it meant everything. What Marcus appeared 10 minutes later, crossing the little street with that calm way of his. The crowd parted, as if they knew that moment belonged to them. You came back, he said. I said I would. I know, but it's good to see. Elena set down the cup, walked to him, and kissed him. In front of everyone. Again. Mrs. Finch sighed. Beatrice took photos. Jamie dropped something, because of course he did, and everything was perfect. Exactly as it should be. Later, they walked to Marcus's property. Slowly. No rush. The field stretched around them, golden in the afternoon sun. I was thinking, Elena said. Dangerous. Shut up, she laughed. I was thinking that maybe I could stay longer. Marcus looked at her. How much longer? I don't know, she shrugged. A lot, the maximum. Forever? He stopped walking. Forever? Or something close to it. I still need to learn to relax. Yesterday I scheduled free time on my calendar. You scheduled relaxation? It's a work in progress. Marcus laughed. Loud, real. And then he hugged her, tight, like he was never going to let go. I think I can live with that, he said. With what? With you? With your lists? With your scheduled relaxation times? With everything. Elena smiled against his chest. Even with me being impossible? Especially with you being impossible. The sun began to set over Willowbrook. Gold, orange, pink. Elena looked at the village, at the fields, at the man beside her, at the life she had built, not the one they expected her to build. It had been hard. Scary, full of moments when she wanted to give up, but she didn't give up. And now, on the other side of fear, she had this. Peace, choice, freedom. Elena Ross hadn't reached the perfect ending. She didn't have the dream wedding, the meteoric career, the life everyone expected, but she had something better. She had a beginning. The right beginning. The beginning that was only hers. And if this story made you reflect, if at any moment you saw yourself in Elena, in the endless race, in the emptiness at the top, in the question, do I want this? Then maybe the story did what it was supposed to do. Because Alina taught us that not every victory deserves applause. That sometimes the emptiness at the top is just the heart asking for something different. And that the quietest courage is the courage to start over, even when everyone expects you to keep going. If this story made you reflect in any way, leave in the comments the rating you would give it. And if you believe that stories can also teach, subscribe to the channel.